Unfiltered, uncensored, and unapologetic. This is the Retail Warzone podcast.
This evening, we managed to accomplish something that was kind of like on my bucket list of things to do. I wanted to get a hold of an actual, current pharmacist who's been through the mess that's been the past 2 years. And fortunately, I had someone reach out to me on Twitter, and we made it happen. So, having said that, Trent, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been in the business, and we'll kind of go from there.
Hi, how you doing? Thanks for having me on. My name's Trent. I'm kind of a new pharmacist, about 2.5 years in right now. And we were just talking about how I seem to roll real lucky. And right when I finished school, I got passed my test and got my license. And I was about 3 months in at Rite Aid, and then pandemic hit. And ever since then, it has been just a nightmare. I can't believe I made it through the first half of this, and the second half I've just been just trying to survive. It's been pretty insane. I can't believe nothing's changed yet, or no one's been extremely hurt and been in the news.
Right. Now, as far as being a pharmacist, how many years do you have to go to school for
that? 6 years total.
Oh, wow. Is there an internship?
So it's kind of a mix. You do your 6 years of real courses. One of those years is out working with, there's a thing called API hours. You have to fulfill a number of hours, basically working at hospitals and different kinds of rotations. And then, there's also little intern things you do along the way. But 5 of the years is solid classes. And then the 6th year is kind of practical stuff.
Now, do they place you when you get your license, or is that up to you?
They have opportunities, but I found my own.
Gotcha. All right. So this gentleman gets out of school, and I believe he said had roughly 3 months tops before the bottom dropped out. So kind of walk us through. I mean, it had to be equally terrifying for you. I mean, just, getting into it, you're just getting your feet wet, doing what you're doing, and this hit. How did word come down? I mean, was there I guess a panic about what was coming, or did they try to ease you in to the nightmare that you were about to live?
It was, it's funny. The first thing I remember is I remembered the toilet paper going, because the toilet paper was in the aisle right in front of us, facing us, and it went in. When it went in a day or two, less than that. And I had gotten one of the last ones, luckily. But I'd say from that time, because that's basically when it kind of hit the news that it was coming to the U.S. From that time until we were giving the actual tests, which is probably 3 months, we didn't receive really any word other than we had to put on a mask, just keep doing what we're doing. What was nice at first, which I didn't realize was the calm before the storm, is the store was actually kind of a mess before that because we were so busy and understaffed. The load lightened. People weren't going out. People weren't going to the doctor's office anymore. People weren't coming to get their prescription refills. Funny as it is, it would seem like it's one of the things that people would go out for, but our load definitely lessened, and it was nice for a month or two, at least, maybe 3, before, like I said, right before we started doing the testing. And when we started doing the testing is when things started getting crazy, because the first couple months we were just flip-flopping around. Is this a real thing or not?
Right. Now, question. So when your workload lightened because everybody was freaking out and hoarding toilet paper, were you guys shutting down early or anything, or were you still working same hours? And how did they do as far as, making sure you guys had PPE and stuff like that?
So I guess the first bad experience that I remember was so originally they told us all we had to do was wear a mask, and then of course, when we started doing testing, we wore gloves, masks, and some of us had foot covers on too, who were dealing with the trash. But that was all they told us, and the only other cleanliness or PPE type of thing I ever had happen was about maybe 2 months in. We had heard about like when the stores had a confirmed case where someone came in and they were positive, they would have to shut down the store. Well, that was the only time that they shut down the store. I don't know how they knew, like specifically someone came in and had a positive test, but it did happen one time. And they made me stay after. They called me as I was driving home after I closed at 9 p.m. They called me and told me I had to stay at the store and wait for the hazmat team to get there to clean the store because they had to have a pharmacist there who had a key. I'm not the manager or anything. I don't own Rite Aid. I'm like sitting there like, why in the hell is this my responsibility? I'm off right now. And I'm like, are you at least going to pay me? I had to stay there until 2:30 a.m. when they got there to open the pharmacy for them, and it was a complete joke. They actually took longer to put on their gear than they did cleaning. It took them like 15 minutes to put on all their hazmat stuff, drag their gear in there, and they just did a half-ass like spray down some of the shelves. Literally only went half into the pharmacy, and they all took off. And I was livid because I had plans that night, and that was the first night that like COVID really like started to fuck with my like life plans.
That's some bullshit.
Yeah, I was not happy. I was like telling I was calling my manager. I was like, I'll just quit. I'll go to CVS or something. I know they'll hire me. Like, I literally could get a job anywhere right now. It's just inconvenient for me to move. Why do I have to deal with this? And she's like, you call your manager then. And I'm like, you're her manager. You call her.
So did the store manager have to be there or just you?
No, they just said a pharmacist has to be there. And I was like, well, then call my manager. And then she's like, well, you can call. My district manager told me I should call my store manager to tell her to come in.
So wait a minute. You had to go do that shit and the store manager was not there?
Right. Yeah.
That's some bullshit.
Mm-hmm. And I'm like 5 months into being a pharmacist or 6 months in.
Wow. Did you get any kind of extra pay for that? Or it was just tough shit?
I think they ended up paying me my hourly, but I never went back and checked. I kind of trusted her after I bitched about it, but...
Now, you guys are paid hourly, is that correct?
Yeah, they claim it's salary, but it's literally hourly. It's only the hours that you're assigned.
Wow, that is... But do you get your overtime and whatnot? Like if you have to cover for somebody? Or are they cheap?
Complicated. I can't... So it's hard because I can't speak for like how it works everywhere. With me, I don't think overtime is a thing because we're technically salary. There is no overtime. It's if you work more, for some reason, you don't get paid for those extra hours. It doesn't count. So I refuse. I'm fast enough at my job to get all my work done. I refuse to work late. When my shift's over, I'm out of there. And part of the problem with my store is nobody else can do it in the allotted time. They're not fast enough, and I have to deal with their leftover shit, which is partially my manager.
So for sake of just math, I'm assuming, and I'm not asking, how much you make. I'm just going to throw a number out there. So I'm assuming that it sounds like, okay, let's say you make $100K a year. And they decide, all right, this is how many hours, do they judge it on like 45 or 50 or something like that? Do they give you a baseline of what your expected hours are? So I have a set 2-week schedule, and that actually was partially up to me, which has been nice. The only reason I'm still here mainly is the drive and the schedule. Gotcha.
But they let me, I got to negotiate a little bit with my schedule just because of my... Like I said, I'm like one of the only people who can work there and not go fucking crazy. And I still do. Like I have anxiety problems from working there. But I'm just not, I'm a little bit tougher than they got some 50-year-old women working there that can't handle doing 300 scripts a day with incompetent techs and having to do shots and all that. It's just not feasible. And then, so I've took this whole week off where I got to go back Friday and see how the store is. I know it's going to be a mess.
Oh, wow. So I'm figuring, so let's say they've decided what you're going to make as a salary, and they break it up by whatever they think hours you should be working. And that's how your hourly rate is kind of determined.
Essentially, yeah. They basically say the store hours are this much. We have to cover this many. We have 2 pharmacists per store. You guys split up the hours. I tried to give away one of my days to a floater, and then my manager actually took the hours for herself, which is fine, whatever. I didn't want them, but that's just how they're kind of split up. So I think I average like 75 hours every 2 weeks.
God, see, that's some bullshit. I mean, if you're going to be salary. All right. But don't play this fake hourly bullshit to make it. No, because you're not getting extra. You're not getting overtime. Man, that's some shady shit.
Right. So I don't stay over for anyone. Like, people don't know how like abused we feel back there.
Well, yeah. And that's kind of what I wanted to get into. So COVID's here, and you're fairly new at this. You're in a location that, obviously has some issues with the technicians. And let's talk a little bit. Tell us a little bit about what makes or breaks you, having a bad technician. I keep hearing stories that the quality of technicians has went down rather than up. And would you say that is accurate?
I would say it would be very anecdotal, but in general, yes. But I think it's indirectly because of turnover, because the good ones don't stay.
So the good techs, where do they wind up going? Do they do something different, or they wind up going working for like the hospital system or something like that?
I've heard a lot of that. Yeah, I heard a lot of moving to hospitals or just leaving the industry entirely, because it's not like it pays a lot anyway. And then some are just retiring or reducing hours. We have our own that's reducing hours just because they don't want to deal with the day-to-day. It's really not a enjoyable job. And we have like a 50-year-old lady that works back there, and we're getting people screaming at us every day.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know.
So when COVID hit, did you start having people like come to the pharmacy asking to speak to you about like any kind of OTC medications they could take to prevent it? I've got to imagine at the beginning you guys got bombarded.
It still goes on. Yeah. And that's the other thing that, the corporate doesn't incorporate into calculating your hours or how much help you need is we get bombarded with phone calls that are unrelated to any of the prescriptions we're filling or vaccines we're doing, or, things that wouldn't exist if COVID was not a thing. But yeah, in the beginning, I remember Tylenol flew off the shelf because the myth about ibuprofen was flying around. And then also zinc was flying off the shelf because everyone found out zinc is good for your immune system.
Wow. Well, yeah, found out. I mean, zinc's been good for your immune system for a long time. Right. Just now figuring this shit
hilarious.
Out. Yeah. So what was the collective thought when, okay, this was brought up, I have to ask. How many phone calls did you get about ivermectin?
Less than you'd think. I would say I could count them on 2 hands, under 10 probably.
Oh wow, good for you.
Yeah,
actually,
it's because I'm in a urban area ish. I think.
Gotcha.
So I think that's part of it. There's a little bit of rural area, but I'm in the city, so I'm not. If I moved to 20 minutes out of the city and worked out in one of those, maybe.
So, how did it go when they decided to let you guys know that you're going to start testing?
We started so early. Like I said, actually, I got in a newspaper about it. So I have the date and the picture, but it was, I think, late March, early April. We were outside in the tent, and they actually requested me to do it. I was asked, and I didn't really want the hours, to be honest. But I was like, screw it, I'll take the extra pay. And I was like, like I said, I was still pretty new in, and I felt like I had a lot of energy, and and things weren't that bad yet. So I was doing like testing. I was doing like a 6 or 8 hour shift in the morning testing, and then doing a 2 to 9 or 3 to 9 shift at night almost every day. That was starting to burn me out. I did that for like 2 months while they still had the testing outside, and then they eventually moved it to the inside, and that's when problems really started.
Now, did you guys like at some point be like, holy shit, I cannot believe you're asking us to do this?
I mean, originally, like I remember being on the phone and she's like, we really need you to do this. And I was like, she's like, Ari's doing it. Who's like one of my buddies. And I was just like, I was asking like, well, what days? And like, she gave me a couple options for days. And I was like, okay, fine. I'll just do these days. And it like at first was okay, but then it turned into actually being annoying. It wasn't as fun after a couple of days of doing it, and it just gets repetitive and annoying. And then eventually they moved it to the inside, and that's when they really screwed us because we had like a 5 to 8 man crew running the entire thing outside. And then they took the whole thing and just put it inside and expected the same pharmacist and 3 techs to do it along with all their other work. And we've been doing it ever since then. That's when shit has never been fixed since then. Now,
did you guys have any kind of fear? I mean, here's this basically unknown pathogen, that's quite terrifying and can, obviously can kill and has killed many. When you guys were tasked to start doing the testing and whatnot, was there any thought like, well, what are you going to, are we going to get like hazard pay? Or, I mean, I've got to think there had to be some uneasiness.
Yeah, we were not. Some techs were refusing. They didn't want to do any of the testing. They said they didn't sign up for that, and truthfully, none of us did. None of us did sign up to be a testing station for a new pandemic that we don't know anything about. But I wasn't too scared just because I saw that it was a respiratory virus, kind of like SARS, and that a lot of cases were mild. But I was like. It was up in the air to me, like whether or not it was going to be a big deal. And I had volunteered because I was pretty comfortable being out there knowing that if I have a mask and gloves on, I know how to handle myself. I'm not going to be making out with any of the people we're testing. So
you're right. A couple of questions. Well, actually the same question kind of came through. How many phone calls would you get that basically were, here's my symptoms, what should I do?
Oh yeah. And people, some of the scarier moments, aren't the ones that I felt like I was in danger. It was when I did get calls and people telling me we called this hospital, nobody has a place to go. What do we do? Where do we go? And I'm like, I have 250 prescriptions to do. I have a line of people. I have a shot to do. And I got a call here with some old lady that's scared because she's starting to have a hard time breathing. It has COVID. And it's like, that's scary. And I feel guilty, but what am I going to do?
Well, I think the sudden push and basically dump off on pharmacies, it almost pushed you guys in the public's eye. All of a sudden, instead of being pharmacists, all of a sudden you were like physicians.
Free doctor visits is what people think it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's totally unfair. And so obviously when they moved the testing inside, you didn't get any extra hours for it. You were already stretched thin in your pharmacy anyway prior to this. What about when you got the word you're going to start giving vaccines?
That was horrible. We never really got under control again after we were doing the testing. So kind of like the timeline is we moved the testing to the inside. Now all of a sudden we were doing all of our prescriptions that we were having a hard time finishing anyway, because we can't hang on the techs because for a billion reasons, but partially because of my partner who chases them out. We are already behind, and then they start adding 50 tests a day because, of course, all 50 slots are filled every single day for months on end, all the way through the summer. We're doing 50 tests a day, and these are people that are coming through the drive-through that are clogging up our regular drive-through. So we're getting yelled at and screamed at by people because we have a huge drive-through line because these tests take a couple minutes, max 10 minutes, minimum 7, to do the entire thing. And we're doing 50 of those a day, and they just expect things to be peachy. So then we get people calling in, telling us that we're all awful at our job, screaming at us that they need shit transferred and all that. It was horrible. So eventually they got it reduced to, like, they limited it to the number of tests we could do, like 30 or something, and that helped a lot. But we're still doing tests to this day, and it's still a problem. And then the vaccines came. And when they first started, I think we only did Moderna. So they had each store separated. So our store was a Moderna, some were Pfizer. Moderna was the easier one. I didn't mind that, but they just didn't have it structured at all. They didn't have, scheduling or anything, and they just wanted us to accept anybody that walked in. So some days you do 50 shots, and you're the only pharmacist. No prescriptions are going to get done if you're not really good at your job, or really fast at least. And so we just have plenty of people working there that literally cannot. It is impossible for them to handle the workload that is given to them. And I'm one of the few people that can do it, and I'm sick of doing it and not getting paid extra for it, or not getting extra help and not getting extra recognition. And it's like insane that if I left the store, I think they would have to shut it down in 2 weeks maybe.
That, one of the questions came through. Have you ever experienced people yelling at you that you give vaccines?
Oh yeah, I had one craziest call I've had so far is someone telling me I'm violating the Geneva Convention, and that she called the FDA personally, and they told her personally that it was not FDA approved yet. And I said, yes, it's emergency use, FDA approved. It's a specific thing. It's another approving. Then she just wanted to tell me that I was violating the Geneva Convention and that I'll be taken to court or something. And I just had to hang up on her. I don't have time.
It's okay. She did her own research.
Yeah, I know. UIOR, as long as it's on Google and Reddit. And
I just can't. I mean, so from a core pharmacy standpoint, your store specifically, how many people have you lost due to all this extra pressure and workload?
So in 2 years, I actually was trying to keep track of that. I think I've estimated I've lost between 15 to 20 techs.
Damn.
In 2.5 years.
And you folks out there, you may or may not know, but having good techs makes a huge difference on how your day goes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Having one person there and another person there is not the same day for you. So here's the problem. What happens is the whole team would quit. We'll get 5 to 6 new people. None of them know anything. So I got people asking me, what's the generic for atorvastatin? What's the this and that. So every single transaction with a customer becomes I'm basically running the transaction. They're just my hands. And so I'm having to answer basically every phone call because I can't do anything on the computer. I'm handling every question that ever happens at the register, which is like, if it's not a clean transaction where the prescription's ready and all they had to do is pay for it and they go, then they're going to have to involve me. And that's just not sustainable. And that's why no other pharmacist can handle it either, because they also need help on the computer on everything they do. They can't do anything.
So another question that came through, are there any extra precautions they tell you to take to prevent, let's say you test a sick person, and from the time you test a sick person, what do you, to fill a prescription? I mean, is there do you just wear gloves and wash your hands, or is that just it, or is there an extra step there?
So it's all done through the drive-through. So there's kind of like this drawer that you pass stuff through, Mm-hmm. Basically you just set up a basket. We have these assigned red baskets, so we don't use them for anything else. But we have cleaner and paper towel and gloves over there, and you just set the person up with their vial and swab, and you send out a basket, and then you bring it back in, and you spray down the basket, spray down the drawer, and then replace the basket. Everything should be cleanish.
Gotcha.
In theory, but we're doing this hundreds of times, so it's
Is any of that?
We're wearing gloves, but we're also touching the same computer and same lever and same basket that everyone is getting their prescriptions through, which is a concern I brought up with my manager originally when they said we're doing the testing through the drive-through. I said, oh, the same drive-through that we deliver people prescriptions, sick people prescriptions through.
Yeah. I just, so I know like CVS, when we went to go get our test, I was not, to your point, I was not able to find an appointment that was open. So I actually had to go through like one of these drive-through health department test places. Whereas my wife, she went to CVS and they actually had, their testing facility outside, and I think they still do. So was there any particular reason where you worked and decided to bring it inside?
So it was actually partially because we're in Michigan, we wouldn't be able to do it outside all year.
Oh, that's true.
But I think most of the reason is because they wanted to use the same team. They wanted to use the pharmacists and techs they're already paying to do a job inside. They were paying a whole separate team to do it outside. And then they just moved it to inside where you're paying just the techs and pharmacists.
So more work, less pay.
Yes, that's what exactly. I was literally doing for the first 3 months, only filling prescriptions, MTMs. That was about as complicated as it got. Things were all right. Then we had to do testing through the drive-through. So we were doing 50 tests a day. Then they added vaccines. Then they added flu vaccines that we're doing now.
Good God. Any word on getting the COVID pills?
Haven't heard anything about that yet. Nope. I have no idea how that's going to work. It seems like, so the issue with that I see is that you can't give a, whatever that license is that we use to give vaccines under. It's like that partnership license with the doctor. We basically have one doctor that we put all of the vaccines under. I don't think that a pharmacy would be, well, I don't know, because I am actually licensed to, I can do a test for like strep or flu and then provide a prescription for Tamiflu or Z-Pak. So I might be able to do it the other way, but I think what I'm saying is that if they come out with a pill, someone has to prescribe it, and I don't know how that would work to be able to bill or put on record who the doctor is.
So really, like the statement you just made about testing for strep and flu and like that, you guys seriously have been pushed into like a quasi-physician role.
Yeah, we have a machine that they sent us that's like $10,000. I have no idea how to use it. They've been telling us you're going to be using it since like 2 Augusts ago. And I was like, when am I going to have time to do this?
I mean, but Jesus Christ. I mean, like I said, pharmacists had it rough, from burnout long before COVID happened. And now they've got you doing all these things that people would take their, go to the doctor for. Y'all need to get fucking paid.
Yeah. And that's on top of that. I'm not going to see any of the profit from however the insurance pays for that test.
God almighty, man. This was kind of like my crusade when I started, wanting to talk to pharmacists is, look, you guys, what are they going to dump on you next? You're already, giving vaccinations. What's next? Are you going to start doing stitches? Jesus.
Some drive-through surgery.
Yeah. A whole new term, outpatient surgery. You go to your local drugstore and I think that's just totally unfair to y'all and to the profession because that's not what you signed up to do.
No. Yeah. And it's very far from anything you talk about or do in school. It's pretty insane.
So in your experience doing this for the past couple of years, have you seen any pharmacists finally just throw their hands up and walk out?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. At least 3 that I know of that have rage retired.
Yeah. But can you blame them? Really?
No. No, absolutely not. I don't blame anyone. Like, people text me after they work at my store and say, I don't know how you work there every day. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of just have to wipe my mind of it every day I go home.
So if this continues like this, what kind of shelf life do you give yourself? Eventually it's going to come to the point where you're going to be like, fuck this.
Yeah. I don't plan on staying a lot longer. It is a shorter term thing for me. They have opportunities to transfer. That seems to be most likely option for me because there are opportunities elsewhere. And I know not all stores are like mine. I picked a particularly busy store. I like to be busy, and I like to think I'm pretty good at my job. So they offer me a little bit more to be at the busier store, and I got to be a staff instead of a floater, which I thought was a big bonus. So that's kind of got my foot in the door and improving myself, and I can kind of move on soon. So I'm not stressed out. That's why I'm kind of just in survival mode there.
Yeah. Well, being a floater sucks.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. So I'm glad I got straight into staff, and I can kind of demand. I can just prove that I'm a staff pharmacist. So
that's man, like I said, it's just fascinating to me because, you know, like I was telling you offline, you know, that pharmacist I had that was sick and they couldn't get a floater. You know, she's at work and shouldn't even be there, and in between customers, she's about passed out, you know, laying on the floor.
Yeah, I know a pharmacist who had a heart attack at work.
God, I mean, and people don't understand. I mean, there again, too, when you start talking about customers, you know, you're getting abused by customers just like the cashiers are, just like the store managers are or whatnot. And, you know, you guys, not that, you know, cashiers and store managers aren't providing something, but you guys are providing a service that's quite, you know, important. And they basically just spitting in your face.
Yeah, it's like the expectations of a doctor's office and a pharmacy, but also that you get treated like you're working at McDonald's.
Well, you know, if they were going to expect it to be like a doctor's office, they should be okay waiting an hour after their scheduled time.
Right. Well, we get we get things that are just so incredibly rude and stupid, like just people constantly asking, well, can you make an exception for me? Or like, well, it's my medicine. And I'm like, everyone's here getting their medicine. Okay. And I have people constantly asking me to put them in front of everyone else. And it's just like, everyone here is getting medicine. It's like a line, and we put you in line, you wait in line, okay? However fast it gets done is how fast it gets done. If Rite Aid wanted more people to work here and for it to be a less of a wait time, then they would hire more people, but they don't. So,
yep, because by God, they're going to make as much profit as they can.
Yeah, so I'm done stressing out about it. I just do what I can, and that's the other thing. I've been starting to pull back. I used to push myself to try to get everything done, but
well, good.
It's not worth it.
Yeah, don't run yourself into the ground. I mean, you can only do what you can do, and that's it. And they sure as hell ain't going to pay you any more to do more. So,
no, they haven't even kept up with inflation in the last 2 years. With I'm not happy about that. Yeah.
So, what would be, you say, the worst customer interaction you've had during COVID?
I've had to call the police 3 times. I have to think of them each individually. Which one's the worst? Okay, so I'd say the most scared I've ever been, which is probably the worst, the most rattled I was a patient who, it was actually the 3rd time he'd been there. First time he came through the drive-through, he of course was getting morphine and something. I think he was trying to pick up like 2 morphines. That's what it was, 2 different morphines, and they were high quantity. And we were super busy, and I was like, tell him we don't have it. I'm not going to have time to fill it anyway. He's just going to be mad. And the first time he just like peeled out of our drive-through, like loud as hell, going, I don't know, probably peeled out of there going 40, and scared the crap out of the tech over there. And the second time he came back in, he dropped it off, and he said, "You're going to fill this." He's screaming at the tech, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm not going to be able to fill it tonight. I'll take a look at it and put it in for tomorrow or whatever. And he was screaming at the tech, calling her a bitch or something. And then he came back around through the drive-thru again and sped through the drive-thru, like intimidating us the second time. And then the third time he came in, I told him I'm not filling it. He needs to take it and go somewhere else. He leans over into the counter, starts screaming at me, telling me he's calling his lawyer, he's going to sue me and all that. And then he pulls out his camera and starts taking pictures of me while I'm working. And then I call the police because he says he's got a gun or something. And I called the police, and we're scared he's going to come back with a gun. We had the police come in and get down all of his information. We had his one of the techs was smart enough to get the tags, and we were scared, like, because not only like opioids involved, but like he's obviously angry at me in particular.
Yeah.
So he's gonna be looking for the guy with the white coat in the back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So not hard to miss that.
That was the most scared. Yeah, and that took me like an hour to make that. I didn't know if I was overreacting or not, but my heart was pounding for an hour after that.
Well, when you're dealing with opioids, I mean, the people, obviously, I'm sure you've seen some crazy stuff, what people will do for that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it doesn't matter who you are. Their brain is not functioning correctly. So I can't talk them out of it. I can't talk reason to them, and I'm trapped back there.
Right. There was a question that came through, and this is, I'm curious as to this as well. Are certain prescriptions priority over others? Like, for instance, heart meds or insulin, say, over antibiotics, or is it really you just do it in the order you receive?
So like any real world answer, it's kind of a mix, but yeah, in general, like an antibiotic and steroids get boosted to the front. Those are usually the quickest to do and the most needy, especially if it's like a kid getting a suspension or something. Those are the quickest to go through. As for like heart meds and all that, so here's the thing, if you're taking a heart med, you're taking it once a day, you should have enough to last you until the next day at the very least. Or if it's a new one, we'll probably get to it. But yeah, I would say it's mostly in the order if you get it, but the system kind of works the things that are more urgent out anyway for you.
Oh, okay. So it kind of puts it in the queue that it, quote unquote, sees.
Yeah. Antibiotics tend to get up higher on the list.
Here's a great one. A regular angry IT guy says, is there anything the average person can do to help pharmacists? Is there an alternative to retail pharmacy to use? So supporting independents is definitely a good answer. Independents have been like wiped out. They have been making a little bit of a comeback lately, but in the last 20 years, they have been like decimated from what they used to be like in the 80s and 90s. A lot because of like CVS and these big chains just buy them out and then undercut everyone and have these crazy low margins and stuff. But to help out your pharmacist locally, it's tough. I mean, I appreciate complaints to corporate about the staffing, saying like the staff looks obviously disgruntled, they're understaffed, they're stressed out. Or even like reporting like bad customers, because sometimes we have customers that we can't get rid of and we can try to tell to leave, but we have no authority. And I've been told I can't tell patients to not come back. If you report them like they're you see an event or something, because there's always someone around, and I've had people scream at me, and it does help when patients see that and they're like, sorry, I had to deal with that and stuff. But like sometimes corporate doesn't believe us when we'll get a complaint, and then we'll actually have to like give them a gift card or something like that. Oh God, we've talked about that a lot.
Yeah. So just being like at least being honest and being like seeing it from the pharmacist's point of view or from the other side, or also talking to family members who complain that a lot of times just don't understand the situation. That's seems to be the case a lot when people are upset.
Now, when COVID happened, was there any push, like immediately, to say, okay, there's going to be this rush, especially with the testing and whatnot? Was there any kind of push from these companies to actually add more staff, or were they just kind of like winging it? We're just going to keep what we got and make them do it.
So early on, no, I would say early on they saw like after a couple months testing, demand died off a little bit. And like really early on, like I said, the stores were slow, so they were trying to cut hours. They weren't trying to add any hours at that point. But then it kind of ebbed and flowed because then the vaccines got added, and what really happened was it was just like there would be an intense 1 or 2 or 3 weeks, and I think there was just waves of people quitting. when vaccines hit and testing was bad and like that kind of thing. And then it just turned into a vicious cycle of hire, quit, hire, quit, hire, quit. And that's literally what happened at our store. That's why we went through at least like 4 full sets of like 4 or 5 techs at a time.
Good Lord. Now in your situation, is it 2 pharmacists in your location?
So it's basically 2, and then we have 1 that fills in like once in a while on certain days.
So why would, look, we understand, the burnout from pharmacists even long before COVID hit. What do you think stopping these companies from going ahead and just biting the bullet and say you've got 3 pharmacists, per location to kind of break up the load?
I think it's literally just because it doesn't impact them at all. If they just have 1 pharmacist there, the store will eventually function. So they just know that eventually someone will figure it out. Somehow, you think about this, how many times have you heard of like retail pharmacies just being shut down for extended periods of time? It just doesn't happen. Somehow there's always a district manager that gets stretched thin that works extra hours to go and fill out at the store that both the pharmacists quit at or something, Somehow there's always just someone that they stretch thin onto that, just cover that 1 extra shift.
But see, that's the thing. I mean, that's just asinine. So obviously it has to come from the top. The top's just not interested in putting out the money to properly staff. Like I said, pharmacists are valuable. I mean, you're not, like a stocker or something, that you are a specialty service that is required. And there again, for the roles that you fill that are so important to society as a whole, you're still treated like, a controllable expense because they're not going to pay you more. They're not going to give you extra help. And that just really shows how shitty the whole thing is.
Yeah. We're like basically captive to like, you're just selling your soul for like the paycheck. It's pretty much agreed on both sides. They know that it's shitty and you know that it's shitty.
So the pharmacists that you've spoken to, different or people that you went to school with or whatnot, what's the general consensus on like, what's the best pharmacist gig to have? Obviously it's not being a retail pharmacist.
Oh man, that you brought up my friends. So I just wanted to tell you a story before I forget. So one of my buddies, he had never worked before in a pharmacy. All throughout pharmacy school, he was one of those lucky guys he didn't need to work. So he got all the way through and got a job with CVS. And his job, he quickly got called in like 2 or 3 weeks into be a manager at another store because the manager there had just recently one day left his wallet and keys in the C2 safe and took some fentanyl patches in Norco, and they found him dead on the railroad in 2 days.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's how he got his first manager job. He slid into that spot. That store was so destroyed, he said it was like 2 weeks behind. He ended up quitting within a month, and now he's at Walgreens.
Good God.
So he had a rougher start than I did, and he was doing that during COVID. So I don't even, yeah.
So for a pharmacist, are you better off going to work for like a hospital? I mean, so ultimately, if you're going to continue down the path, ultimately, I guess your goal would be to wind up in a hospital, but I'm assuming that there's not a lot of openings for that.
There kind of is, and there kind of isn't. So with hospital, nowadays you have to have a residency. So you'll have to do your 6 years plus a year of residency, which is basically another year of working for half pay and doing school at the same time, working overtime, which sucks. So I avoided that because you can kind of get paid nicely right out of school just doing retail. And I never really was super interested in hospital. But I would recommend you go hospital because it's a cushier job, more normal hours, and you can do a little bit specialty stuff in the hospital that'll increase your pay and make you a little more valuable.
In your experience with all the people that you've spoken to that are in a profession, what's the general consensus, the worst one to work for, and then the best one to work for in the retail landscape?
Good question. So I've heard, I don't have experience, so it's hard to know for sure, but I've heard Costco's up there in the top 3. I've heard Publix, which is a chain down south, is supposed to be up there. And then Sam's Club, I guess, is also pretty good. Those kind of, well, Target too, which has kind of gotten eaten by CVS, but those just tend to be slower stores. That's what helps. But Costco, I think, if you ask any pharmacist, I think they'll definitely mention Costco.
Okay, who's the worst?
CVS is probably number one. Yeah, public enemy number one. Probably.
I would have to say so. And my God, I mean, like you said, they ate up the Target pharmacy. And I saw something about, didn't they do something like they're like trying to have physicians on site or something now? Yeah,
so I think not even that, because they wouldn't do a full doctor because they won't pay for that.
I think
true. They're doing like PAs.
God.
And they do like minute clinics, I think, or what they're called. I've never seen one, but I have seen them listed, and somehow they do have pharmacist jobs listed in those minute clinics. I wonder if that's kind of CMR, MTM related, or some kind of counseling related.
That, man. So do you regret getting in the business, or you still like it so far?
I'm like totally neutral to what I do, like totally neutral. I don't hate it or love it. I like being good at it and fast at it. I hate the people I have to interact with and deal with, and the extra responsibilities added on top of me that don't seem to be appreciated by any kind of extra pay or help. That's the part that I'm frustrated with. I'm okay with the pharmacy part of it. The manual labor side is whatever, and then the intellectual part is barely even there nowadays, because it's like you're just speed running, checking scripts.
Right. Good question came through. What's the craziest we're desperate for help thing you have seen happen?
That's for help. I mean, I've had a couple talks with the scariest, or like, I don't know if I call it crazy, just kind of depressing, is like old ladies that are very lonely. And I've had some tell me some of like the horrible things that they're going through, and they're totally alone now in life. They have no friends or family around, and nobody cares about them. And all they want to do is talk to me, and I just don't have the time. And I do sit there and listen to them, but I've had ladies just break down crying to me, and I'm just like, it feels like, I don't know, an out-of-body experience. I'm just sitting there so stressed out, and I got this lady crying on the phone to me. So two different worlds going on. So
you're a pharmacist. They expect you to be a physician, and I guess they expect you to be a therapist too.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow. Same question. Desperate for help thing that you've seen as far as staffing.
So the worst I've heard was one of the CVS's nearby my buddy was 1,700 prescriptions behind.
Oh my God.
And oh yeah, and that's the one that they then allowed. There was 2 techs there, and they allowed one to go on vacation.
They let somebody go on vacation, 1,700 script. And what's your average script count per day?
For me, it's between like 300 and 350.
Yeah, so they're basically almost a week behind.
Yeah, right.
Have you had any experiences in your location or stories from your peers about techs who really, really screw up giving the wrong medicine to somebody and it actually being fatal or causing serious illness?
No, I've luckily had no experience with any like med errors that resulted in any kind of harm. I've had several med errors happen in the pharmacy before. I guess the most egregious one is one of my techs, instead of bringing me the prescription to check before it got delivered, we have like a delivery service through DoorDash. They just gave the package to the DoorDash driver before I even checked them. which is like on the scale of like 1 to 10 in severity, I'd give it like a 4.
Wait a minute.
They've already been half checked, but yeah, that's
you guys let DoorDash deliver prescriptions?
It's not my choice. I hate it.
No, so seriously.
Yeah, they have DoorDash come and pick up. Someone signs up somehow online. It prints out a fax to us, tells us they're coming in, and they have to prepay for their prescriptions online. And some kid comes, picks it up in DoorDash, and then it gets brought to them. Yeah.
C2s as well?
I don't know that. I kind of doubt it, but I don't know that for sure because I don't actually interact with it. Just like prints out. That's one of those things where they just expect us to know how to do it and do it without any training or talk about it.
Are there restrictions on what goes out? I mean, can they come pick up opioids?
I'm pretty sure the delivery doesn't let you do any controls.
Okay. All right. I was going to say, boy, that would be that'd be on the news.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it doesn't allow any controls, and then, they have to sign for it.
Oh, my God. But that's still frightening.
Yeah, I don't like the delivery at all. It's messed up several times, and then also, like I said, that's one of the mistakes that I can't stop from happening. A tech just takes the bag and gives it to them, and I'm doing a billion things, and I can't watch every person all the time.
So if there's a mix-up or something like that, is the tech in trouble or are you in trouble?
It's a little bit of both, but I'm ultimately responsible, yeah.
Gotcha. I'm just floored that DoorDash is delivering scripts. I'm sorry. I hadn't heard that. That is the most horrifying fucking thing I've heard all year, I think. that oh my God. I mean,
it's a disaster too, because people expect it to be us doing the delivery. They expect us to know what's going on, and we're like, it literally just prints a sheet out and says they're coming. Like, that's all we know.
Oh my God. And you got some poor individual sitting at home looking at a computer screen, your delivery driver has, arrived at the pharmacy. I mean, I thought it was weird when I found out Walmart was doing deliveries through Uber, but this is like some next level jacked up bullshit.
Yeah.
Is it just you guys
driving it around? You mean just our store or just the chain?
Just a chain. Now, I do know that Walgreens is delivering. I wonder if it's the same thing.
I don't know if like CVS delivers now. I actually don't know. I mean, I know like a lot of independents do personal deliveries. But that's usually they send a tech or something.
A couple of questions here. What if the DoorDash driver gets robbed?
Yeah, then we got a big legal problem. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Next question. What do you think the number one reason techs leave is? Pay, workload, or customers, or a combination of all?
So I guess that would depend on location and like your specific situation, but in general, it'd probably be a combination. The pay has been coming up, but I would start. Listen, if I was king, you would have to do have a 2-year degree in whatever associate's thing from community college, and then start out at $15 or $20 an hour, whatever seems reasonable, then go up from there, and have an actually educated person who can communicate with people about medications without me having to watch over their shoulder because they can't pronounce Lipitor or Torvastatin and they don't know the generic of this and that. I can't believe we have this system where we have techs that don't know anything, that are talking to patients who don't know anything, and they're both trying to solve a problem about a medication that neither of them know anything about.
So what's the average rate of pay for a tech now?
I think it's between $12 and $15 an hour, and I think the high side is 15. Like you'd be doing really good at like a hospital or something for 15.
Now, do they have to get certified now to be techs? Because I remember when I worked for CVS back in the 90s, they would send people to like some class or something.
Yeah, there is that. Yeah, there is a thing called the CPHT, which is a Certified Pharmacy Technician License, that is required in Michigan now within 6 months of being hired. luckily Rite Aid actually has a system that gets you through it, and Rite Aid's counts as the state certificate, so you don't have to pay for it to do it with the state, which is nice. Problem is, we don't have any time to allot for them to do it, so literally none of my techs have done it in the past 2 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And the company doesn't, obviously isn't making any kind of move to make sure it happens.
Oh no.
But do they get fined if they find out that they haven't done this within a certain time frame?
They end up having to get fired.
Oh wait. So wait a minute. So you got a tech who hasn't had the opportunity to go because they've been worked to death, but since they don't go, they get fired?
It's even worse. It's doable on the computer at work. We just don't have people to cover the shifts for them to do it, to have the time to do it, where they could take time off from work and not have to work extra, and not be putting in extra time out of their own free time to come in and do it. It's so fucked up.
Oh my God, that is awful.
And while we're along the lines of training, just while I have my mind on it, it's totally tangent, but this is something that I complain about, and it blows my mind every time I do it. But we have this whole computer-based training program called, we call them CBTs, and they're just these lists of videos that have quizzes and questions in them that you have to pass every once in a while for certain ones, and some of them you just have to do once. But what's crazy is you do them while you work. So you play the video while you're working, doing other things, not paying attention to it, and then you have to pass the test or the quiz at the end, and then you have to sign at the end that you agree to all the things that you just learned, and that you'll follow the rules, and that you won't mess up this or that in the hazardous waste or whatever. So you sign your life away that you've been trained on these things when they've had you training while working. It's crazy.
Wow, my friend. Boy, wow. I'm still, God, like I said, I thought it was bad back then. It obviously hasn't gotten much better.
The response to that would be, well, you should come in on your free time.
No.
Yeah, and I'm like, no, absolutely not.
There's a reason why it's called free time, and that doesn't mean work for free.
You pay me hourly, so you're going to either pay me to do it on my free time, or you're just going to not make me do it while I actually work, because you're paying me to work.
Wow, this is insane. All right, so we're sitting at an hour. We can all go back and say, today I learned that DoorDash delivers prescriptions. That's going to haunt me for the rest of the night, I'm pretty sure. So I want to thank you so much, Trent, for being on. I appreciate it. This has been insightful as hell. And like I said, I mean, I feel for you guys. I especially feel for you, because like you said, you were, basically brand new when all hell broke loose. And, at least you got a good enough attitude to try to, get through it. I can't imagine like the older, saltier pharmacists that, this hit them like a ton of fucking bricks. So I'm just like, man, I'm just amazed. We'll have to do this again. If you think of something like, pretty specific, dealing with all this that you may have missed or whatnot, let me know, and we'll do this again if you're willing.
Yeah, absolutely. I had fun. Thanks for letting me vent.
This is great. All right, guys. So next Wednesday, we're going to have Brady Tunes. So if you haven't checked out those tunes yet, go check it out. I swear to God, the Home Mart one, I was sitting there with my wife watching it. I'm like, that is just dead on, every bit of it. So if you haven't checked it out, please do. Should be a good time next week. Trent, once again, thank you for being on. We'll be in touch soon, because I would like to do this again, because I know you've got more to say. I mean, your profession is something else, and I want to applaud you for making it through a very difficult 2 years, because I know it sucked. So good luck to you. I
appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Stay safe. And everybody, the audio of this will be up sometime tonight. And make sure you spread. Please don't be a Karen this year to all your friends and family. Give them some Christmas joy. And we will see you guys next week.